Hello all, it's Ahmed here and welcome to Recruitable University and welcome back to the recruitment program. So we've covered the two last lessons, which were the payroll and the back office, the back end of things when it comes to doing the admin tasks. We'll be going over to policy. So this is a little bit boring. It's the boring side of the recruitment, but it's essential. It's important that you have all the right policies in place. So first one of them, of course, being your terms and conditions. It's important that you have something called terms and conditions and that you do not work with any client until they have agreed to your terms and conditions. This is just to cover yourself. It's to make sure that you are get paid on time, that you actually do get paid for the service that you provided. And of course, also no one is poaching your candidates without your consent. So terms and conditions are very important. It's the foundation of your organization. It's the foundation of your company. And without terms and conditions, honestly, you cannot function. And your clients haven't adhered or they haven't agreed to any of your terms and conditions. Therefore, if they don't pay you on time or if they do not pay you at all, and you don't really have much of a leg to stand on, even though there is tribunal and dispute and other sort of courts, you can go down that route. But again, this is just to save yourself so to save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of problems. It's important that you have terms and conditions, and it doesn't have to be something uh, fancy or out of the ordinary. You can even go to as it can be as easy as going to ChatGPT and going and just typing in sort of ChatGPT, write me terms and conditions for a recruitment agency. So it will just give you the standard templates that most agencies will use. They will just write terms and conditions for your recruitment agency. Hey, Ahmed here. I hope you're finding value in this video. If you need any free advice or help with your recruitment agency, or you're thinking of starting your own agency but have some questions, feel free to join our weekly Q&A. You may have seen some clips from it on my page. I'll post a link in my Telegram community, which is completely free to join. I don't even need your email or phone number, and I'll personally be there to answer any of your questions. The link is down below for those of you who are interested. Now let's get back to the video. Name. So here we'll say terms and conditions for ABC recruitment, and the first one is welcome to your recruitment agency. We, our, us. So this is more of a introduction, and then you've got services, and again, what you sort of provide. You provide recruitment services, registration of use and services. Then you've got employer obligation, job seeker obligation, fees and payments. These are the payment terms will be specified in the age agreement between us. So making sure that it's laid out clearly what your payment terms are, confidentiality and privacy, intellectual property, disclaimer liability, termination, governing law, dispute resolutions, changes to terms, contact information. So this is typically what terms and conditions look like. Of course, the wordings may vary from the industries that you are doing. If it's important that you have your limited company, which is your legal entity name, as the on your terms and conditions. It's also important once you are, I would say I would highly recommend once you are this is definitely something you can start with initially, but once you start making money and you are expanding and starting to grow, I would recommend that you have your terms and conditions looked over by a solicitor. It doesn't cost much for them to look over your terms, and just to give you a bit of recommendations on what you can do to improve it in the best ways for you to cover your back and not have clients potentially screw you over. So terms and conditions are important. And when do we send our terms and conditions to clients? I will say at the time of them requesting a candidate from you. So for example, let's just say, going back a little bit, and this is something we may have covered before, but just sort of a short, quick recap. Let's just say you reached out to Bryony and you said, I've got a medical receptionist for you. You sent out an anonymous CV, a CV that does not have any personalized details, no contact numbers, no postcodes, no email addresses, no personal details. And the client will have a look at the CV that you sent over, say, the CV looks great. We were actually looking for a medical receptionist to work 27 hours a week at our general practice. Are they able to do this? And you respond back saying, yes, they're happy to cover Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as per your request. They will then say to you, that's great. There's two options, or there's two general responses. Either, yes, may we interview this candidate so we can potentially get them in to work for us, or if it's more faster paced recruitment and it's something that we get on a lot of the times is, yes, this person looks great. Can you send over the rest of the documents and can we get booked in? So depending on what, of course, what they ask for. If they ask for the interview, or even if they're asked to book the candidate in, the next step now is to send them a copy of your terms and conditions. You want to make sure that you send them a copy of the terms and they sign your terms. So that way you have covered yourself and they cannot screw you over or sort of play around. They've got the terms and conditions that you've sent up to, and they've agreed to your terms. So this is the first thing. One of the policies that we'll be going through is terms and conditions. Ensure that you have a set of terms and that you send it to your clients prior to you working with them. I always reassure my clients because sometimes it can be a little bit, I don't know, it's not just daunting, but I would say sometimes it gives them the fear of commitment. So when you send them a copy of the terms, then sometimes they ghost on you. Sometimes they don't reply to your emails, they don't reply to you at all. So I like to give them the reassurance by saying, by signing our terms does not obligate that you have to work with us. There's no commitment that that's taking place. It's just to cover ourselves, so that any candidate that we submit to you, that you cannot take them on without our consent. But by no means necessary you have to work with us at all. So this just gives them the reassurance that they don't have to commit, because sometimes people do get fear of committing. So just let them know that by signing the terms, they don't have to commit, and there is no fees involved for them interviewing your candidates. Because sometimes what happens is they don't want to take that step because they think, okay, if we don't hire the candidate, do we have to pay the recruitment agency uh, a fee for their time? So I let them know that, one, there's no commitment involved by signing the terms, and two, there's no fees involved until you actually hired. So even if I supply 3 candidates for you to interview, you interview all 3 and none of them were successful, just to reassure them, there is no fees that will be that you will incur. So that is the terms and conditions. And then if we move over to indemnity insurance, why do we need indemnity insurance? I would say only get it if you need it. And because just like everything else, once you are starting a company, just get the bare minimum, the requirements and the necessities for you to start your recruitment agency. But we will mention indemnity insurance because you may come across this when you're dealing with larger organizations. Sometimes when you're dealing with bigger clients, or even if you're trying to get on a framework, which is let's just say an NHS framework, which is a preferred supplier list, which not anyone can work with them. They have an approved set of agencies, and one of their conditions, of course, will be having public or indemnity ins insurance, or public liability insurance. So it's important that you have this. So there's so many different companies that will offer this to you. You can go on Google, type in indemnity insurance. A company that I use personally is Hiscox. They are fairly straightforward, very easy to deal with. You just get a quote, make a claim, or sorry, get a quote, and they will send you quotes over. They cover public liability, professional indemnity, employer's liability, cyber and data, product liability, and other type of cover. The one that you would need, especially if you are going to use a factoring company to do your financing for you, they will ask you that you have a public liability, I think also professional indemnity and employer's liability. Either way, before you get into committing and buying these products, the companies who are requesting insurance will tell you what type of indemnity, what type of insurance cover they will require for you to work with them. So then only once they tell you which one you require, then you can go on websites like this and purchase the right one for your agency. And these are generally cheap. They're not expensive. You can just do on a pay as you go, so on a monthly basis. I think they charge about sort of 10 to 15 pounds a month, and that will cover you up until a million, from a million to about £5 million worth of claim. Again, more than likely, it's not something that you'll be needing or you'll need to make a claim, but it's just companies and big organizations like the agencies that they work with to have the right insurance in place before they will do any business with them. So if you do come across an indemnity indemnity or indemnity insurance or public liability insurance or whatever type of insurance they need. These are the types of websites you can go on and you can get that in place. So it's important just to know what type of policies the and companies may require, just so that you can get those right policies and it doesn't stop you from doing business with them. And then we'll go into direct engagement. So this takes us back a little bit to our terms and conditions. Why I specifically mentioned direct engagement is because a direct engagement clause is probably the backbone of your terms and conditions. And this is basically what, so I've got over here. So direct engagement, and there is a couple of points. So it's quite important if you have direct engagement in your terms and conditions. Yeah, I'm sure even if we type into ChatGPT, add direct engagement, it's something that it probably will do. Or if you are going to have a solicitor or a lawyer to look over your terms, then I would recommend for you to ensure that you add direct engagement. Direct engagement, pretty much what it is, it covers you, and so if we look at direct engagement clause 9.1, if the client engages a candidate who was introduced by the company without reference to the company either. So the company is the agency, is yourself, and the client is the hospital, the warehouse, the client that's giving you the business, that's asking you to find them staff. So once you find them a candidate, there is something called a grace period of, generally speaking, industry standard is about 12 months. I know some agencies are doing 6 months, but industry standard is anything between 6 months to 12 months. So over here, we've got 12 months. Within 12 months of the introduction, if the candidate is within the client's country, so if you are recruiting for UK and the candidate is also in the UK, then it's a grace period of 12 months. They cannot work with your candidates whom you've introduced to them. So that's why it's important you have these terms signed. So once they do sign it, you've got a grace period of 12 months. So they cannot hire your candidate that you've introduced. Let's say, for example, argument's sake, we're going to say Chelsea Hospital. You've introduced a candidate to Chelsea Hospital. Now, Chelsea Hospital cannot hire your candidate for a period of 12 months without your consent if they are in your country, and if they are outside the country, for a period of 24 months, because of course you need a longer time to undergo visa requirements, etc. So if an assignment has taken place, and or within the assignment, so if we look at clause 9.1.2, during an assignment of or within 12 months after the assignment, then the company must notify the client in advance in writing, which includes and shall pay a company a direct engagement fee. So, for example, if Chelsea Hospital, after 8 months, contacted your candidate whom you've introduced, then they must notify you saying, I know we are within the 12-month period, the grace period. It's 8 months. We are interested in having Dr. Joe Bloggs back again. Can we have him back? So they should go through you, as you are the ones who's introduced them. Now, what happens if they do not go through you? Now, that will move us over to clause 9.2, which is if they have, so there's two options. So sometimes you'll find them a staff member, and they will say to you, we've interviewed your candidate, we're not interested in your candidate. So there's no assignment that has taken place, but you've still introduced a candidate. So if you've introduced that candidate, even though no assignment has taken place, meaning no actual work has been carried out, but the fact that you've introduced them, you've got a grace period of 12 months. Now, if they take your candidate on without your consent behind your back, which sadly does happen quite often in recruitment, there's two things. If the candidate hasn't done any work for you via this for the client via your agency, then the terms state that you will go on websites such as jobs.nhs.net or indeed.com and find similar job roles as to the person that you've poached and charge them 20% of a similar salary within a 200 miles radius. So this is assuming that they haven't worked with your candidate through you. So you've just introduced them, they've interviewed, they say to you they've not been successful at the interview, and then they've poached the candidate behind your back. Then, because you had no history with them. There was no booking and or invoices that were sent to them previously. Therefore, the fee would be 20% of the nearest jobs within a 200 miles radius by going on jobs.nhs.net or Indeed or whatever you have on your terms and conditions within a 200 miles radius. So then let's just say, for example, you find the job title for that doctor was about £100,000 per annum. You will charge them 20% of that £100,000, which will be 200. So which will be 20,000 £20,000 as a direct engagement fee. So this is assuming that they've not done any work with them before. Now, let's say they have done work with them, which will take us to point 9.3, which is where an assignment has been agreed and a direct engagement shall be 20% of the fee that would have been payable if the engagement had been arranged between the client and the company on the terms of the most recent booking form. So what that means is if you were charging the client, let's just say you were charging them £115 per hour for the doctor who was working there, and they've taken your doctor on behind your back. So let's just say he did 2 shifts, he did 4 shifts, he did 1 month, 2 months of work via your agency and working at that client. Now, the client said to you, thanks for providing us your candidate. And at the moment, this is, sometimes they give you all sorts of excuses. We don't have the funding, or we don't need any extra pair of hands at the moment, or we're quite staffed, or we've managed to find salaried staff, so we don't need your locum anymore. Thank you for finding a staff. So then they will take you out of the equation. They take you out of picture. They will contact your doctor directly and say to them, okay, so the agency was offering you £90 and they were charging us 115. Why don't we give you £100? We save ourselves 15 quid and you increase yourself. You earn an extra £10 per hour. So it's a win-win for both the contractor and the client. And of course, it's a loss for the agency. So this is where your terms and conditions come to play and covers you. So where an assignment has taken place and a previous booking form has been sent to the client, then you will charge them based on your last booking form according to the terms and conditions in your direct engagement. So for example, if you are charging them £115 per hour, and this is what you had an agreement with them previously whilst he was working. So it will be based on a full-time work basis. So full-time meaning 4 times that by 40 hours a week. And that will equal, and let's get the calculator out. So you will charge them 115 times 40 is 4,600 a week, times that by 52 weeks in a year. So the full-time equivalent will be quite a substantial amount. So it will be 239,200, and you will charge them 20% of the full-time equivalent had they taken them on for 40 hours a week. So that will be times that about 0.2, and the direct engagement in this case will be a whopping amount of £47,840. And I know you probably think this sounds absolutely ludicrous, but this is industry standard. It's not unheard of, and it's not unnormal at all for clients to poach your candidates directly. It happens all the time. They will give you all sorts of excuses. I've heard from, she's left something in the practice. Can you send me her mobile number just so I can let her know what she's left behind? To we don't have the funding. To we're quite staffed at the moment, or just ghosting you in totality, not just responding to your emails and to your calls. And likewise, also the candidate, funnily enough, not also responding to your emails and calls. So it's sometimes can be a little bit fishy. Hold up, the client is not responding, the candidate's not responding, and what's going on over here. So you can do a bit of digging. How you do the digging, there's different ways. You can contact the hospital, for example, and just say, hi, may I speak to Dr. Joe Bloggs? And if Dr. Joe Bloggs is in, then that gives you an indication that he's working there and he's not working there through you, which is a breach to your terms. So the breach to the terms, it does not mean that the client has hired them behind your back. So it's whether they've hired them behind your back or they've poached them, and they haven't hired them, but they're paying them on a contracting basis, or they hire them on a salary basis, or they've even using the same locum but now via another agency. Because these terms and conditions are to cover you, to say that you've got a period of 12 months where this candidate is exclusive for you at this hospital only. Does not mean that you own Joe Bloggs now, and if Joe Bloggs wants to work in, let's just say, Lewisham Hospital, he wants to work in Hackney Hospital, that he cannot work there except for you. No, he's a free agent. But when it comes to this hospital in Chelsea, you've got an agreement with Chelsea Hospital to say that Joe Bloggs is exclusive to your agency for a period of 12 months. And this is industry standard. So I would highly, highly recommend that in your terms and condition that you have something called a direct engagement. So as this will save you a lot of money and a lot of loss as well. So not only will it save you a lot of money, also it will reduce the loss that your company will incur, and also it will stop a lot of your clients from hiring and poaching your candidates behind your back, which is very common in recruitment, unfortunately. Okay, so this is an example of an email I would generally send to the client. Direct engagement has taken place. The first thing I would just do is just send them an email saying it's been brought to our attention that so and so has been working at your surgery in this case, or in your hospital, or at your company, despite the fact that it was ourselves who has introduced this candidate to you. And then just attach the email of your first introduction to them, and also attach an email of you sending them the terms and condition, and then obviously signing your terms and accepting them, and a copy of your timesheets just to show that the candidate was actually working via your agency. And then I will just put into the email and what our terms state. So just what we went through now, once you introduce them, if an assignment did take place, then it will be 20% off the most recent booking form. Or if it didn't take place, then it will be 20% off the nearest same job title in the up to a 200 miles radius on NHS jobs or Indeed or whatever websites were stated on your terms. Of course, you will change this according to the industry that you're doing. And it doesn't make sense to have NHS jobs. If you're doing the IT industry, you'll make this more IT or websites that are more IT related. Or you can even do generic websites such as Indeed, Total Jobs, etc. So this will just cover you and keep it generic as well in case you do get into different fields. Where an assignment has taken place, then this is quite straightforward. So if an assignment did take place, then it will be 20% off the total full-time earnings. So for example, here, this is a example of a candidate who was being a client that we were charging £47 per hour. So you do 47 times that by 40 hours, or 8 hours a day, 8 hours a day, times that by 5 days a week, which will be a full-time earning equivalent of £97,760. So of that, you will do 20%, and 20% of that will equal £19,552. And you should let them know an invoice will be processed separately. So you'll send them this email initially, and you will send them an invoice email separately from this email. So then I just, in 9 years of recruitment, issue a direct fee is not something that you take lightly. So what will normally happen is they've got a payment terms of the direct engagement we state to be 7 days. Within 7 days, they generally will pay. If they don't pay, you put on this email all collection costs incurred as a result of instructing a solicitor. So you'll be liable for all these extra fees. So please ensure that you pay promptly to avoid additional unnecessary costings. And what will happen generally is they will come back to you, and when you send them this huge amount, and you're not always guaranteed. When I say guaranteed, as in the surgeries will not always be, they'll be reluctant most of the time to pay, even though they are in the wrong, and they will ask you that you don't take this via solicitors or go through legal proceedings, and if they can come to an agreement with yourself and have some sort of settlement. And what happens is sometimes they will offer to pay 50% of the invoice. So they'll say, 19.5 grand is a huge amount. Can we pay, let's just say, for example, 9.5 grand? or 10 grand to settle this invoice, so that then you are sort of more you are in control. The ball is in your court, and it's really entirely up to yourself. But you've got to bear in mind um, that a lot of the clients, if they poach your candidate, they are in the wrong. So even though the ball is in your court, you don't have to settle at what they've proposed at, and you can counter them as well. And then or you sometimes do get the stubborn ones who just completely will ignore your email. And I've only in literally in 9 years of recruitment, I think 9 years or 10 years now in recruitment, I've only instructed solicitors twice, and yeah, and it's proven to be successful. But again, a lot of the times they would prefer not to go through solicitors, of course, because they've got to pay for the solicitors' fees, and they'll try to negotiate with you a settlement outside of court, and you will have the option to settle. But of course, don't get too greedy when you see a huge amount and say, no, I'm not going to settle anything less than what I stated. If they do come back to you with something reasonable, bearing in mind, if especially if the candidate wasn't working with you a lot of the times, then it's huge numbers, and just say to yourself, you know what, I'm gonna find them for the majority I can get out of them. Sadly, also it does break relationships. So after they do pay the invoice, majority of the time they don't want to work with you thereafter. But again, it's not entirely your fault, because they're the one who have breached the terms and have poached your candidate. But yeah, it's something to take into consideration as well. Once you do go down this route, reputations generally, not reputations or relations, sometimes does get tarnished, and most of the times, as a matter of fact, and they prefer that you don't contact them thereafter. And I'm sure as well you wouldn't want to work with a client who are poaching your candidates behind your back. So yeah, this is important. This is more of a follow-up email what I would normally send. And within 7 days, if I don't hear from them, then I will just and give them another reminder and let them know if I don't hear from you an extension of another couple of days, then I will have no choice but to instruct a solicitor. And then I have a solicitor who specializes in this field and who will be instructed generally to take care of these sort of things. And yeah, this is pretty much what you would need to do when it comes to this. I hope you benefited and you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.